It's the Security Weekly News, and it's episode 355. I'm Doug White. It's Friday, the 19th of January, 2024. We've got Google, PAX, LeftOverlocals, Mint, Sandstorm, DJI, Colossus, JelloRain, Aaran Leyland, and more news on the Security Weekly News.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
It's the show that keeps you up to date on the latest security news twice a week. Your trusted source for accurate security information and expert analysis. It's time for the Security Weekly News.
Application Security Weekly delivers interviews and news from the worlds of AppSec, DevOps, and all the other ways people find and fix software flaws. Join us as we explore how the latest news highlights modern security practices and reminds us of the missing ones. We also bring insights from interviews on topics from training to threat modeling, from open source tools to cloud-native techniques, plus an occasional reference from new wave to synthwave. Find us at securityweekly.com/subscribe or look for Application Security Weekly wherever you pick your podcasts.
All right, welcome to the Security Weekly News. It's another Friday in January, which means snow and cold, and it's definitely snowy and cold today, although strangely enough, New England is not nearly as snowy and cold as the Midwest and the South. So if you're in the South, well, enjoy the sub-zero temperatures. Where it's a beautiful, balmy, I don't know. I think it was like -3 Celsius or something here, so not that cold compared to all of you. Anyway, an urgent Chrome update was sent out this week to fix an out-of-bounds memory access issue. Yikes. Out-of-bounds memory access is a bad thing. I mean, because that really means that you can reach, you can go out and get other things out of the memory. But this was an issue in the V8 JavaScript engine. And Google didn't release a lot of information on how it worked or whatever, but they said, quote, Google is aware of reports that an exploit exists in the wild. So a vague statement, but, nevertheless. They also said that the zero-day flaw was reported anonymously. This latest patch provides updates to fix 2 additional memory safety issues in V8 as well that are both rated high risk, and they had a whole bunch of other basic fixes. The latest patch follows several other patches they have released for 0 days and other things in recent weeks. I don't know if you ever noticed, but every time you open Chrome, if you use Chrome, it's basically wanting to update. In 2023, they had at least 7 0 days being discovered that were being exploited in the wild, not to mention other ones that were patched. So, don't neglect this. Be sure and tell your people if you're using Chrome, be sure when that, patch notice comes up that you patch it and restart it. It really takes 2 seconds and it will prevent so many of these problems. PAX Technology makes point of sale terminals that have the unfortunate acronym POS, which can mean a lot of other things in English, but we won't get into that. But PAX terminals are Android-based, and they're from a company that's headquartered in China. We have sort of a theme of that today. But PAX makes payment terminals, they make pen pads, they make POS hardware and software, and their products are sold globally. These devices run on an operating system called Paydroid, which is based on Android. Now, STM Cyber reported that the apps running in the terminals are run in sandbox mode, but that an attacker who has root access is able to tamper with any of the applications, including the payment process. So a kind of esoteric problem in a way, but at the same time, who has root access to these things? The report does say that an attacker would not be able to access decrypted payment information, but that they could modify the transaction amounts and other related data. So this, of course, would be one of these sort of standard scams where you buy something and they do the charge, and then the clerk goes in and says, what if I charge them $1,200 instead of $120? And, you got a problem. STM Cyber said that they identified 6 vulnerabilities in the PAX POS devices and provided a technical report on the matter, which does include proof of concept exploits, and that's all linked in that article. 3 of the issues can be exploited by attackers with physical access to the USB port on the vulnerable device. So if you have any of these, you're probably already thinking, where's that USB port? And could somebody, standing at the counter of the store, plug something into it? Because I've seen those before, where there's a USB port right there in front of your very eyes, or, that it's got like a little piece of tape over it. And I go, I bet that's a USB port. The second issue would allow an attacker to inject kernel arguments and run arbitrary code with root privilege. That would be bad. That can be exploited in fast boot mode by executing a hidden command to override an unsigned partition. So that would be a little more complicated because you'd have to force it to reboot somehow. But hey, who's using these things? There's clerks out in markets and things using them. Yeah. And there's a bunch of other ones. So if you have any of these PAX POS terminals under your purview, you might want to investigate them both from a physical pen testing perspective as well as from a logical pen testing perspective to ensure that you are protecting them appropriately. LeftOverlocals is a vulnerability discovered in AMD, Apple, Qualcomm, and Imagination GPUs with a G. The vulnerability would allow an attacker, I was very interested in this because it reminded me of something which I'll mention in a minute, but it allows an attacker to steal data from local memory, which could include sensitive AI outputs. I don't think they could write, but they could see what was there. The vulnerability means that the GPUs don't properly isolate memory, which makes sense, and which means that users or an application could listen to the other processes that are being run on that shared GPU. And we all know that we've shifted a lot of processes to GPU usage because a lot of systems have really big honking GPUs in them now. And so those processes could be sitting there, including things like crypto mining. The flaw was reported by Trail of Bits, and Trail of Bits released a proof of concept exploit which used the LeftOverlocals vulnerability to steal outputs from other users in interactive sessions with a large language model. So what they were able to do, of course, was to see what the other people were actually asking and what kind of responses they were getting. The attack, according to this report, could be executed with as little as 10 lines of OpenCL code, which allowed you to craft a GPU kernel. So these are logical kernels, and that kernel then reads information left by other GPU kernels in local memory. So you're basically just dumping the memory. So what it reminded me of was an old paper by a guy named Professor Gutmann. And Gutmann got into a real fuss with me at one point. Or actually, supposedly his grad student was the one that was so incensed. Professor Gutmann didn't care. Sorry, Professor Gutmann, if you're still alive. But I wrote a paper about wiping hard drives, and this person did not agree with me because Gutmann wrote a bunch of papers about how you could read the areas around the bits on old MFM hard drives with an electron microscope. Later, several people took umbrage with Gutmann's claims on modern drives, and they tested it and proved that you were basically about the same deal as flipping a coin. But anyway, that's not really relevant. But it also could, I think the better analogy is probably an old detective using a pencil on a pad, where they do and they see what was written, the phone number that was written down. But it's probably more like a detective actually noticed that the suspect has written, "Kill Matthias on Thursday," on a pad. So it was pretty obvious stuff. Some of the devices did do a wipe of local memory, but used a separate kernel to perform the wipe. So there was a time in between the memory and the wipe when a listening kernel could still grab some of that data. So there's a link on this article to all these lists of GPUs that might be affected by this. And they listed some of the chipsets that had already been patched, like Qualcomm had patched theirs. AMD released an advisory last week. Apple said that their A17 and M3 processors included fixes, but it didn't provide any details. And they retested this on the 10th of January, showed that one of the Apple bugs was fixed in the A12 processor of an iPad Air 3rd Gen, but the MacBook Air, which had an M2 processor, was still vulnerable to this. So, it may be worth looking at this article to see if you have vulnerable GPUs on site. Mint Sandstorm, not sure what that image invokes, but I think it might involve a musical number. I mean, maybe. And Mint Sandstorm is believed to be linked to Iran. Okay, that's not so nice. And I think musical numbers may be banned in Iran. I'm not sure, but I'd have to check. But this group, Mint Sandstorm, is believed to be linked to the Iranian government. Anyway, Mint Sandstorm has been observed using bespoke phishing lures to attack high-profile targets using a new backdoor called Media PI. Microsoft Threat Intelligence said the attacks were on individuals working at a high level on Middle Eastern affairs at universities, research organizations, and et cetera in Belgium, France, Gaza, Israel, the UK, and the United States. Mint Sandstorm used legitimate, compromised accounts to send the phishing lures, and the research said that the group continues to improve and modify these tools that they used, and they appear to be focusing on now persistence and detection avoidance. So they're wanting to get in your network, they're wanting to stay in your network, and who knows what they're up to at that point. But the lures have been used in relation primarily to the Israel-Hamas war that's going on. On 10, you said that Mint Sandstorm operates as a state-sponsored actor from Iran and serves various government agencies and potential military objectives for the Iranian government. The group also uses watering hole attacks and phishing emails to target governments, NGOs, private entities, and academia for espionage purposes. They said that they often pose as journalists, government officials, or academics on social media, and their primary objective is to get hold of sensitive information or access to sensitive networks. I guess that job offer I got last week for double my salary if I'd just be willing to move to Tehran might not be real. I don't know. I was thinking about it. I mean, Tehran, yeah. I mean, I have a ton of Iranian friends, but they all live in the U.S., so I don't know what Tehran's like these days. Be careful out there. The article does have a list of things you might want to watch for if it was readable, so you can share it with your employees and such. In that same light, cyber attackers returned from the holidays and started sending out phishing emails. Last week, 2 different groups teamed up to send thousands of phishing emails to North American organizations. The emails, and I got a couple of them even, were not very good. They said things like, "Hi, you have an invoice, must pay." The one I had said I got an invoice from December 2023. I don't remember the company name, but if you do click the link, which I did not, it's a OneDrive link, and it's in an attached PDF on the email. When you click that OneDrive link, it downloads Wasabi Seed, which is a known downloader, and Wasabi Seed then downloads a tool called Screenshotter, which does exactly what you might think given the name. Proofpoint reported on the attacks and said they were blocking these emails, but Proofpoint said that the main source was a group called TA866, apparently not yet worthy of a name. So I'm going to call them JelloRain. I mean, they had apparently been silent for about nearly 9 months. 9 months, eh? What else happens in 9 months? Didn't one of my friends just have a baby? I'm just saying, 9 is also the number of letters in Bill Clinton, if you ignore the O and the N on the end. But, I don't know. So Bill Clinton's mutated love child is found sending out doctored emails. Big headline, 40 point. Film at 11. Oh, I could so write for the Sun. I really could. I mean, it's like mutated Bill Clinton baby. I could just see that headline right there. Anywho, TA866 has been around since at least October of 2022 and has mostly been pretty tame, but now apparently they're partnering up with another unnamed group called TA571. I'm going to call them Foamy Face. And as TA571 is a distributor of emails, so they're a spam specialist. So JelloRain is getting a spam specialist, Foamy Face, to send all this stuff out. But it did sound like they went on a holiday, during the holidays, and now they're back. But be diligent, because even really dumb criminals get lucky sometime. That's why the script for Home Alone 6 didn't get made. I mean, in that script, the idiots just walked in with ball bats and started wearing Macaulay Culkin out. I mean, they were reenacting that scene in Casino when Joe Pesci gets, no spoilers, watch Casino. But let's just say teenage Macaulay Culkin wasn't cute anymore after that. Yeah, they gave him a reason to go, oh no, or what? Yeah, the whole thing. But anyway, if Black Mirror and Electric Dreams, and if you haven't seen Electric Dreams, that's the one based on Philip K. Dick stories. If neither of those shows scared you, you're pretty bold. But apparently, Chinese-made drones, who could be afraid of a Chinese-made drone? Come on. But according to this story, Chinese-made drones should make you at least think twice about using them. Now, industry has a growing reliance on drones, and guess where they're all made? China. The FBI and CISA in the United States have issued warnings that Chinese-made drones pose a, quote, significant risk, end quote, to U.S. infrastructure. The joint guidance was issued on Monday of this week and urges organizations to only procure drones or unmanned aircraft systems called UASs, which adhered to secure by design principles and were made in the United States. Good luck. Don't know if you're going to find any of those, but it's worth a shot. Drones are very useful. They're very helpful things because they can surveil, they can go and operate in places that would probably cause you to mutate into a fruit fly at best. We had some tunnels. Let me tell you, you want chuds? That's how you get chuds. Anyone remember that? Chuds? No? Well, I guess movie references from 1984 are a bit dated, but chuds. Anyway, China has enacted laws in recent years that give the government expanded powers, as if they didn't have those before, but gave them even more power to access and control data that was being gathered and held by Chinese companies. Now, remember, in China, everything's essentially owned by the government ultimately. Even if you own the company, the government really is the ones who gave it to you, and they can take it away if you don't do what they tell you and make you disappear. They ship you off to Uyghur's to work in the radioactive chud tunnels. Exactly. And one of the laws, which was called the 2017 National Intelligence Law, compels Chinese companies to cooperate with state intelligence services, which includes providing access to data collected within China and around the world. So the guidance comes 10 months after a bipartisan group of 16 senators wrote to CISA asking the agency to reevaluate the cybersecurity risks of consumer drones manufactured by Shenzhen DJI Innovative Technology. Well, that's the main company that makes drones. Most of the U.S. drones in 2021 were made by DJI, and DJI drones are connected to the Chinese government through that linkage of a Chinese company that is then subject to the Chinese government, just like every other company in China. And if they're collecting information from the drone, then the government is also able to collect and use that information. So basically, you might not want to buy Chinese-made products that can send things back to the home office, or at least figure out how you can stop that from happening by blocking those connections. Good luck. But, my Ring doorbell has adequately sent footage enough of me smoking cigars on the front porch that the Chinese government has determined that I'm mostly harmless and that I might like cats. So that's all the ads that I get from China. So be careful out there. The government, I really like this story. I saw this headline. I couldn't resist it. The Government Communications Headquarters, which is called GCHQ in the United Kingdom, announced the release of a bunch of photos and documents. Some of you will really enjoy this. Photos and documents of Colossus. Now, if you missed this one while you were hearing about UNIVAC and ENIAC and Multivac, this Colossus was one of the first digital computers ever developed in the world. The release of the information marked the 80th anniversary of a really famous computer, which aided the Allies in World War II, and the United Kingdom denied that this thing even existed until the year 2000. So it was built in the 40s, and until 2000, they said, nope, not a thing, never heard of it, didn't exist, never was there, nope, no chance. The Colossus was not a single computer, but it was a modular series of computers, very modern, that were developed by scientists between 1943 and 1945, and it was used to break the Lorentz cipher, which was used by high-ranking German officials in occupied Europe. This is a lesser-known story that they haven't made a movie of yet, but they probably will. Most people have always focused on the Enigma machine and all that kind of stuff that Alan Turing was involved in. But Lorentz cipher was also a big initiative because this was what the big officers were using to communicate. Now, the Colossus used 2,500 valves, or tubes, as you call them in the United States, to create logic gates and was a precursor to modern semiconductor-based circuits that were used later. ENIAC in 1945 is usually billed as the original digital computer, and it was the first multi-purpose digital computer in the world, but Colossus preceded it by several years, but had a singular purpose. Of the 10 Colossus machines, only 2 of them survived the 1940s, and those were dismantled in the 1960s. You want to know how James Bond was looking at ASCII porn? Colossus. Yeah, baby. Exactly. So that's a fun story if you're interested. Well, like a dry tree seeking water, or a daughter, nice and sleazy does it, and he's not nice, nor is he sleazy. Wait, he's sometimes nice and only a little sleazy. Wait, no. He's sometimes sleazy, but always nice. It's Aaran Leyland. Hi, Aaran.
That only happened in Las Vegas, and you said you wouldn't tell anyone.
I didn't tell what happened.
We could write a book on what happened.
No, I don't think I could. It was just like, I don't know. I got there and then I came home. I can't remember.
So Colossus, you said they were dismantled, right, in the 60s or something?
They were.
Have they rebuilt them? Because I'm sure I've touched it.
I think they maybe had other components or something that they saved, or that pieces of it or something.
Yeah.
But I think when they said dismantled, I don't think they necessarily meant they like completely, disassembled it. I think they just took the computers apart and the modules apart and, put them in a warehouse somewhere with the Ark of the Covenant.
Because if anybody's in the UK, there's a place called Bletchley, and that's where the code breaking happened. And I used to work at GCHQ, and we got the sort of behind the scenes tour there, which is pretty much exactly the same as the tour there, to be honest. But I went behind the velvet rope and I touched it up.
I drove past there once was all I did, because I was going to Lincolnshire, and it's way out of the way, but I drove past Bletchley Park because I just wanted to say I had driven past Bletchley Park.
Yeah. All the Alan Turing stuff still makes me sad. So
it's terrible. That was one of the worst things that ever happened, but
British government holes.
Indeed.
Okay. Anyway, that actually is a good segue to talk about cryptography, and I guess that's what Colossus was for breaking the German Enigma codes on cryptography, and how have we not really moved on much further than there? Or maybe we have, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So today's article is from HelpNet Security, and the link is in the show notes as always. Attribute-based encryption, ABE. It says the could spell end of data compromise, which sounds very bold. So cryptography is a difficult subject. So I'm going to explain it like we're 10 years old, and then I'll go into further detail. Ain't you lucky? Okay. So imagine you have a box of toys that you want to share with your friends, but you don't want everyone to play with every toy. So you come up with a special lock for the box. The lock is very smart. It doesn't just open with a regular key, but it opens for people based on their qualities, like if they're a good sharer or really good at puzzles. In ABE, these qualities are like attributes. These could be things like someone's job, their age, or what they're good at. When you put a toy in the box, you decide who should be able to open the box and play with that toy. Maybe you decide that only friends who are good at sharing can open the box when there's a special game inside. Okay, so there's two ways that this can work, and this is the 10-year-old version. Key policy ABE. This is like saying only friends who are good at puzzles can open this box. The box checks the friend's qualities, like being good at puzzles, and if they match, the box opens. Then we have ciphertext policy ABE, and this is a bit different. It's like if you give your friends special badges with their qualities, like good at sports or loves painting. When you lock the box, you say the box can only be opened by friends with the love painting badge. If your friend has the right badge, then they can open the box. So ABE for 10-year-olds is cool. A way to keep things safe and make sure only the right people can access them. Just how you might want only certain friends to play with certain toys in your box. And I can't talk about the adult version of toys in boxes because we'll get taken off the air. Easy, isn't it? Okay. Right, let's go to the adult explanation for all you smart cyber people out there. Okay, attribute-based encryption, ABE, is a type of public key encryption in which the secret key of a user and the ciphertext are dependent upon attributes like the user's role in the organization, geographic location, or security clearance level. In ABE, attributes are used to express the access policies that determine who can decrypt a given piece of data. And as we know from before, there are two main types of ABE. I didn't change the names for 10-year-olds. Key policy, ABE. In this system, the ciphertext is labeled with a set of attributes. The user's private keys are associated with access policies. often in the form of logical expressions. All you smart people will know what a logical expression is. A user can decrypt a ciphertext if and only if the attributes associated with the ciphertext satisfy the policy of the user's private key. So the second one, ciphertext policy, ABE, CP, ABE as it's known in shorthand. This is somewhat the inverse of KP, ABE. Here, the user's private key is associated with a set of attributes, and the ciphertext is encrypted under an access policy. The user is able to decrypt the ciphertext if the attributes of their private key satisfy the policy associated with the ciphertext. APE is particularly, I can never say that word, useful in scenarios where access control is complex and dynamic, such as in cloud storage systems where data may need to be accessible to users with certain roles or credentials. It does offer more flexible approach compared to traditional public key encryption systems, which rely on a direct relationship between the ciphertext and a set of decryption keys. Okay. We are told that ABE, which is a novel cryptographic paradigm, is rapidly emerging as a promising solution to the complex challenge of balancing data utilization and the stringent privacy requirements in today's data-intensive world. Unlike traditional encryption methods, which offer an all-or-nothing access model, ABE introduces a nuanced, policy-driven approach, aligning access with specific user attributes. Okay, so we have I'm going to go into a bit of the evolution and theoretical underpinning. Tracing its roots to a pivotal 2005 paper called Fuzzy Identity-Based Encryption, ABE has evolved significantly over the past two decades, recognized for its long-term impact with the International Association of Cryptologic Research 2020 Test of Time Award. I bet that party's so good. I wonder if it's like Wolf of Wall Street. This concept has transformed the encryption landscape. Dr. Brent Waters, one of the paper's co-authors, highlights ABE's triple impact as a standalone application with unique use cases, a foundational building block in cryptographic research, and a catalyst for broader encryption innovations such as functional encryption. Go Google that if you don't know what it is. So, ABE's core strength lies in its ability to provide fine-grained data access. This approach doesn't just unlock an entire database or a file system, it precisely targets specific data elements based on the user's attributes, embedding access control even within the data itself. ABE ensures consistent protection across various systems and environments, significantly enhancing traditional access controls. Sounds amazing. So ABE's practicality was showcased in 2022 hackathon hosted by NTT Research. The winning project apparently brilliantly applied ABE to surveillance video, enhancing privacy while allowing access to authorized individuals. This application adeptly balanced privacy with accessibility, protecting sensitive data like faces, building logos, and GPS data. So basically, different people looking at the same video could have the video in certain places like masked due to the sort of permissions that they had for the video. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. It's not just like, let's have a private public key, lock things up and throw it away. We can actually get down to a real sort of minutiae state. So they reckon the hackathon highlighted ABE's diverse applications across sectors, from transportation, ticketing, and vehicle data control to healthcare and banking. ABE's granular access controls offer a more sophisticated alternative to traditional role-based access systems. So actually what I'm saying here is the level of detail and the new novel ways that you can do this, it's left up only to your mind's eye to start coming up with new ideas. And maybe there's some new tech in here, there's some new startups. Maybe you can build some new software and do something pretty cool. Abe's commercial deployment and future prospects. Apparently moving beyond academia, Abe is now being deployed in real-world applications. Projects range from hospital surveillance to manufacturing plant monitoring, adhering to strict privacy regulations like GDPR. The technology's adaptability was evident at the NTT R&D Forum 2023, where its application in live streaming and video content garnered significant interest. So it looks really cool, and it looks like, if you're into this sort of thing, it looks like something to really get involved in and start building cool things on it. So to me, I think that Abe represents a viable solution to the long-standing conflict between data proliferation and privacy demands. Its ability to strike a balance between data protection and access hopefully marks it as a critical area of interest in the cybersecurity landscape. As we grapple with data privacy, maybe Abe can get involved there. So hopefully things are getting better. Anyway, sounds cool. Back to Dr. Doug in the studio, who would have loved me explaining things as if I were 10. Peace out.
Thank you, Aaron. I love your explanations of things. It's very helpful. I mean,
very good. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. And finally, a security researcher in Germany has been fined 3,000 euros for finding and reporting an e-commerce database vulnerability that was exposing about 700,000 customer records. Now, according to Heise, a contractor that was identified as Hendrik H. was troubleshooting software for a customer of the IT services firm Modern Solution GmbH. And discovered that the code they said it was a MySQL connection. So I guess MySQL connection to MariaDB database server that was operated by the vendor. The password to access that remote server was stored in plain text in the program file msconnect.exe. And opening it in a simple text editor would reveal the unencrypted hard-coded credential. Wow, this is like the hacker equivalent of penthouse letters. I mean, I know you probably won't believe what happened yesterday. I was just minding my own business and walking down toward the shower room, and I opened this notepad file, and it had the root password Gandalf in it. I mean, I'll be honest, this is a standard database practice forever. I mean, every company had code that had hard-coded passwords in it because that's how you wrote database code. When your program was accessing the database, the password to the database was, if they even had one, was right there in the code. And, there's lots of root passwords in lots of hard code still today. And I will tell you, as a former pen tester, I looked for these things. I loved finding root passwords in printed documents, in printed code source, you name it, if I could find it. It's still true. But apparently, after reporting this, Modern Solution not only downplayed the risk and said, oh, no. They called the police. So German police seized the IT consultant's computers after Modern Solutions said that the only way the consultant could possibly have obtained this password was with insider knowledge. Like, yeah, I guess. But they said he had previously worked for a related firm. So Hendrik H. got charged with unlawful data access under Section 202A of the German Criminal Code, which basically says that examining data protected by a password can be classified as a crime. Now, the initial hearing on this, the judge dismissed the charges, but they pressed forward and they reversed the charges, and now Hendrik has to actually pay the fine. Now, the verdict apparently is not yet binding, and there's a 2-week window where they can file an appeal of this. But it sounds like one of those where the judge doesn't actually know what a computer does or a database is or how code works and has no knowledge of any of it, but gives it their best shot. And we've seen those trials, right, where the judge is going, I don't know, man. Very annoying. Anyway, thank you, Aaron. That's the news. We'll see you next week on the Security Weekly News.